Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the live stream slash podcast slash YouTube video or whatever the duck this is. If you are watching this live on YouTube right now, you are in the chat, you are listening, you are watching the YouTube channel, the live stream. If you are listening to this as an audio file later on, you're probably doing it on Spotify or Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts, etc. If you are, please leave a rating and share the episode with a friend of yours who you think might also find value in it. Today, we are going to talk about India's bias against the arts stream. Now, oddly enough, this is something that I am talking about for the first time on this live stream as a separate episode. I my entire YouTube, like I've been online for nearly 2 decades now, but my relative little prominence in the Indian online sphere started with a Twitter thread that I wrote a few years ago. It kind of went viral and was shared by a lot of people, not only in India but generally speaking in the subcontinent. And it became apparent, like the scale of the problem became apparent to me then, even though the problem itself was kind of clear, which is that in this subcontinent, because of societal pressures, economic pressures, etc., the science stream is preferred by students, and when students are directionless, their parents. So children grow up thinking that there are two avenues in life. One is medicine and one is engineering. And in order to get into careers in those streams, they choose the science stream and they become engineers and doctors. However, something strange happened in the last decade or so, which is that the social media sphere kind of grew into prominence. Now, in the social media sphere, what happens is that there are a lot of conversations about India in the course of everyday life. And these conversations tend to be about politics and society and culture and religion and art, etc. Nobody actually talks about engineering and medical topics in the course of normal everyday social media life. So here's what happened: an entire generation, which is my generation, and perhaps even sections of the generation above me, behind me, uh, grew up under the impression that if you choose science, you are the higher strata of society. I consciously do not want to compare it to the caste system because that is its own thing, and it will feature in this conversation later on also, because it has other kinds of ramifications. But an entire generation grew up thinking that choosing science as their stream, choosing science as choosing science subjects to study is better, objectively better than choosing art subjects. And of course, these people all became engineers. And today we are at a place, I'm fast forwarding a little bit, I'll get back to what I was saying. Today we are in a place where people are, like, most of the utter superstitious garbage that you receive on WhatsApp forwards and online, generally speaking, you will find that a lot of people who send these things to you are highly educated engineers and doctors. You know, गोमूत्र के बारे में या some scientific ritual in the religion, etc. So science stream clearly hasn't given people scientific thinking. That's one part of the problem. The second part of the problem is that people go for the so-called science stream, and what is devalued as a result of it? What is devalued is the art stream. What is devalued is the humanities. And humanities include subjects like psychology, sociology, etc. You will find there are a lot of people who are engineers and doctors tend to think that they are automatically experts in these areas also without ever having studied them. So I'm going to go back to the Twitter thread that I wrote a few years ago and tell people, like, read it out to you. But the general idea is that the things we complain about in the course of our complaints about the state of democracy in India, etc., it all kind of has to do with the fact that people have lost sight of what a citizen is, what rights are, what equality means. And these are all things that these supposedly devalued humanities subjects te- uh, teach us, right? These are areas, these are avenues of modern life that are explored by these humanities subjects. Engineering does not teach you about democracy. Medicine does not teach you about, you know, the rights of a citizen. These are technical domains, and people who are experts in these domains have my complete respect. The problem that I'm going to talk about today is that the people who want to be respected, people who should be respected for technical domain education, regardless of their skill in that their area of choice, should not be treated as if they're experts in every single area, including areas like sociology. By the way, a huge number of people who are uh, called anti-national these days are sociology people, are social workers, the NGOs who work for the upliftment of the marginalized communities. This broadly falls not under science but under humanities. It is my fair conviction that the troubles that India is going through right now, a huge part of it is due to India's bias against art stream. And this has been decades in the making. It's not a new problem. We are seeing the repercussions of it right now. We are seeing large numbers of people who are completely oblivious to what democracy is supposed to be, to what secularism means, to history. For example, history is also a humanities subject. The people who are of the opinion that mythological texts contain historical data are the same people who did not study, or at least did not pay attention to history in school, because history will not make you an engineer. So in a way, our disregard for humanities subjects in school as well as college has brought us to this point where democracy itself appears to be in peril. But let me look up the article that I'm talking about. Uh, Hold on. It was called Angry Art Student. Return of, yeah, here it is, I think. No, it was called Loss of Science Stream Privilege. So I'm going to put this on screen and I'm going to read this out to you, because without this thread, it does not matter. Uh, it does not. It does not. This entire thing will not make much sense. Share screen. Chrome tab. Right. I hope this is visible. Yes. So let me read this out to you. And I wrote this in 2018, by the way, September 13, 2018. It goes, the other day on a WhatsApp group, a software engineer, a school friend, shared a meme that pretty much said that rising petrol prices are okay because at least the BJP is saving us from Bangladeshis and Rohingyas and such like. Before that, a doctor, another school friend, and a trained psychiatrist said that I had violated his freedom of expression by blocking him on Facebook. I had blocked him because even after multiple warnings, he had been spamming my comment threads with the defense of a rapist. When I told him that freedom of expression is something that exists between him and the state and not between him and me, he did not get it. He did not understand that freedom of expression did not mean he was free to spew vile bilge on other people's social profiles. I want to try to explain this lack of understanding. And this is not just a lack of understanding, it is a full on denial, not just of facts, but of the ways of thinking that the humanities teach. These boys were science students. They spent their school lives focusing on science and math and did reasonably well there. They targeted technical careers and got through. They worked towards building stable futures for themselves as defined by our middle class sensibility. They are products and supporters of a system that looks down upon the arts and the humanities. They devoted themselves to technical skills in a society where art students were destined for failure. They studied math and physics and medicine and became doctors and engineers. They made it. They won. Their families demanded large dowries for them because they had that much social capital on account of being doctors and engineers. They were not failures like art students. And what did the arts kids do? They resigned themselves to second rate lives, lives that society had assigned to them. They studied history, sociology, political science, and economics. The broad view, the disciplines that form the foundations of human culture, were all that was left to the art students. Then, out of nowhere, the internet happened. It was the early 2000s, and blogs and an infant social media universe came into being. It wasn't tech heavy. The art student liked it. For the first time since school, they had a playground. They had avenues to explore their subjects with a level of depth their schools had never provided and their colleges could not care less about. And because many of them could not afford a liberal arts education abroad, this is small town India after all, they made the best of the internet. They studied, read, communicated with experts, and even began to use the web to publish their own work and find their voice. They started getting what had been denied to them by our education system: a sense of self worth and even the right to consider themselves intelligent. I want to go back to this sentence a little bit: the right to consider themselves intelligent, because this is also something that happens to our students throughout their educational careers. They put in the dumb kid category for the simple reason that their talents lie not in the subjects that science students go for. If someone is extremely interested in history, if someone is extremely interested in drawing, if someone is extremely interested in music, or even sports for that matter, they are in the dumb category. If someone is good at math, they are in the smart category. Our way of defining intelligence itself is shaped by this preference for math and science. There was no roadmap for them to follow, so they taught themselves and went into journalism, advertising, writing, and law. They became web publishers, they started websites, they began to mold a kind of heaven from the hell that they had been condemned to. Now, the science students, the ones who had been too good for the humanities ones, want a piece of this pie, the public discourse pie, the place where much of the talk is about politics, economics, history, and media. Many of them find that they cannot. They lack the education for it. And they just can't digest it because their lives have been lives of educational privilege. They have always been the top rung of Indian society. They were brought up on the lie that they are better than everyone else. They have always been the ones destined for success. Remember success? We talked about it in the last episode and the one before that. For the first time in their privileged lives, they find themselves having to contend with the fact that they might not actually be good at everything. On an average day, it is hard to get these people to shut up about their houses and their salaries and their houses. On days when the talking point is politics or economics or some other matter that they threw away because only girls study arts, this should have been in quotes because this is something that is said about arts, that only girls study arts, and it is meant as an insult, but obviously it is not true. And also, it is even if girls study arts, they're not becoming less than because they study arts. On days when the talking point is politics or economics or some other matter that they threw away because only girls study arts, they're positively sick with FOMO. They feel left out. So, is it any surprise that our educated middle class is raging against media and intellectuals and experts and stars and writers and artists? Look at all these categories. Look at all the rhetoric that you have heard in the last few years about exactly these things. The media is bad, intellectuals are anti-national, experts are bad, clearly anti-vaxxers, experts don't know anything, stars, Bollywood is bad, writers and artists are bad. Make no mistake, this is the cream of India's educational caste system fighting back against its lost privilege. So it's not surprising at all that an alternate ecosystem has popped up to cater to the insecurities of the science stream caste. It tells them that they are victims. It feeds them sweet nothings from morning till night over WhatsApp. Remember that the right wing was the first to start waging war on the tech and social media fronts. They started the first blogs and had the first IT cells. They were the ones with armies of software engineers. They still do, by the way. Most bugs, I don't have any data to support this, but it seems that every single message that I get from a bug, it's a software engineer of some sort. Cut to 2018. Tell a software guy holding forth about politics and economics on a WhatsApp group that he's wrong about something, and you will get called an elitist or a liberal. Tell a doctor that what he has written makes sense neither on the logical level nor the grammatical one, and he will ask you what makes you an expert. And the fact that correct grammar is just a way for liberals to establish their superiority. Now flip it. Imagine an art student lecturing them about their areas of expertise, engineering or medicine. They would be justified in calling it out because the boy who studied economics and literature is not qualified to comment on these topics. He simply lacks the education. Why is it then that privileged members of the science caste consider themselves capable of holding forth on humanities subjects even though they never had that education? They literally rejected that education. They were applauded for not being interested. you've seen this also, right? कोई बच्चा अगर बोलेगा कि मेरा मतलब क्या ड्राइंग वगैरह में स्पोर्ट्स में इंटरेस्टेड नहीं है, नहीं तो अच्छा अच्छा तू तू बैठ के मैथ पढ़, तू इंजीनियर बनेगा। They were applauded literally for not liking certain subjects. They were applauded obviously for being interested in certain other subjects. And of course, there is also the sad story of students who were thrown into science despite them not having the aptitude for it. And then they had to resign themselves to a life of doing something that they don't want to do or don't enjoy doing. I'll tell you why. The doctors and engineers I'm talking about did not value the humanities when they were in school and college, and they don't value them now. You will have to physically restrain them to keep them from boasting about the fact that they won the race of life. But when it comes to things that arts kids do, they seem to be of the view, ये सब तो कोई भी कर सकता है. In the present political and social climate, intellectuals, liberals, media persons, and artists are not being vilified because of the things they are saying. They are the villains because, in the eyes of the science cast, they were never supposed to amount to anything. They were supposed to be amusements, sources of entertainment, and cautionary tales for them to scare their children with so that they never choose the arts. In many ways, this ye sab to koi bhi kar sakta hai thinking permeates our entire culture. People don't think art is worth money. People tell designers to work for free because it can't possibly be that hard. But the worst possible consequence of our attitude towards the humanities is currently playing out in the political and social arena. Our educated middle class, thanks to a lack of education, is screwing us over. Now, that was kind of what I was talking about with when I started this episode. And the reason I posted that thread is because I want to clarify that even though most of my positions in that thread remain the same, I do want to take some stuff back. I should not have compared it to the caste system. I was kind of sort of oblivious to that back then. 2018 में थोड़ा कम aware था. So I don't want to compare it to the caste system directly in any case. But there is a caste aspect to this that we will get to. And that is that a couple of years ago, I think, hold on. There was this article, yes, in the print that kind of goes into this. Let me share this also. I'll get to all the comments, guys. Keep leaving comments. I'll get to all the comments. We'll have a longer than usual live stream, I suppose, but we'll get to all the comments. This was an article in the print written by Rennie Thomas, and I hope you can see it. Yes. Brahmins on India's elite campuses say studying science is natural to upper castes. So there is this idea that Brahmins are smarter. And the way that idea manifests is that they put their children into subjects that will cause them to have greater social capital. And this has percolated into the myth that science may Brahmins do better because they are naturally smarter than people from supposedly lower castes, which is utter bullshit, obviously. We just spoke about how many of these people will send you WhatsApp forwards about complete pseudoscientific garbage. So I'll leave a link to this article in the chat if anyone wants to read it. I don't want to show the whole thing here, but um, print article link. अरे article की spelling गलत कर दी मैंने RR. Hmm. So you see the link here, right? You see the link between our disdain for art subjects and how it has fed caste biases and served as a platform for even more casteism, even more disdain against the art subjects. And it has created a generation of Indians who are oblivious to the things that only humanities can teach. There is a book by Martha Nussbaum on the matter. I'll just show it to you. Martha Nussbaum, Humanities book. What is it called? Mm, here it is. Not for profit. It is called. It's called Why Democracy Needs the Humanities. Let me share it. One second. Hope you can see it. Yes, Martha Nussbaum, not for profit. Why democracy needs the humanities. The idea behind this book is that science subjects, or rather, let's not talk about it in pro science things, or rather, that uh, our social bias against the humanities is causing democracy all over the world to suffer. I'll just read the first paragraph of the foreword. The humanities and arts play a central role in the history of democracy. And yet, today, many parents are ashamed of children who study art or literature or art. Literature and philosophy have changed the world, but parents all over the world are more likely to fret if their children are financially illiterate than if their children in the than if their training in the humanities is deficient. Even at the University of Chicago's Laboratory School, the school that gave birth to philosopher John Dewey's path-breaking experiments in democratic education reform, many parents worry that their children are not being schooled enough for financial success. Now, it is nobody's case that financial success is not important. It is nobody's case that science should not be taught. And of course, when I wrote this thread, somebody has asked for the link to the thread. Let me share that in the chat also. It is nobody's case that subjects that are not humanities subjects are are unimportant. That is not being said here. But you might imagine how uh, you know where was I? My chain of thought kind of went away right now. Yeah. So when I wrote that thread, a lot of people complained saying that science is also important. Now, the whole point of the thread was that nobody is denying that science is important. Clearly, science is important. I am someone who talks about the need for science education all the time. But we're not actually being taught science, right? This mad rush towards science subjects, that is the defining characteristic of the Indian education system, is not creating scientifically literate people. It's creating people who are going into it's these are people who are going into the sciences to secure a job, not because they're interested in sciences. Our job market almost exclusively caters to technical positions. It is deficient in arts based careers. When I talk about the importance of humanities, I'm not saying कि जो भी humanities में जाएगा वो सुपरमैन बन के निकलेगा दूसरे छोर से. I am saying that not only do we need to keep the humanities option wide open for children and not discourage them when they choose to join it, we also need to teach humanities better. Because look at how humanities will be taught in a system that is naturally leaning towards the science stream. It will be devalued. The kind of teachers who choose to become humanities subject teachers will be substandard. The kind of course material will be substandard. The kind of attention students receive in that stream will be substandard. The kind of careers they go into will be substandard. We have effectively, through this kind of behavior, condemned huge chunks of our young population to second rate lives, not because they are not skilled, not because they are not intelligent, not because there is no scope in humanities subjects worldwide or in a conceptual, in some kind of objective way. It is because we have not cultivated those markets, we have not cultivated those areas. And in addition to that, when people do go into those areas and when they do come out and they do become something valuable, we continue to devalue their importance in society. Social workers are less valued than engineers and doctors, even though a huge amount of a huge number of problems that engineers and doctors are actively trying to solve will be solved faster if sociological attention could be paid to them. So I'm going to take a look at the comments now. I have rambled for 25 minutes almost. I'm going to take a look at the comments now and we will go from there. Uh, mhm. Arun says these people like science stream so much, but ironically lack scientific temper. Yeah, the science stream and the scientific temper appear to be two entirely distinct things in India. Spiraling Monkey says, Vimo, I would recommend you read Paul Lockhart's book, Measurements and Arithmetic. Why? Like, tell me why. Purvesh says, hello, Vimo. How, I hope you're doing well. Purvesh, thank you for asking. I'm reasonably okay. I hope you're well too. Ayman says, I'm talking to a fellow academic from anthropology, and God, we have been bashing psychology and economics and biological anthropology for their desperation to be hard sciences. Yeah. One of the sad side effects of a system skewed towards science stream is that arts subjects want to become science subjects in order to be taken seriously. विकास says प्लीज मैक्स कमेंट्स ही पढ़िए ज़्यादा क्वेश्चंस कवर होते हैं दैन ऑडियो ओके नहीं आज ऑडियो नहीं ले रहा मैं Eman says some social science like psychology and economics lack reflexivity. Sociology is the apex social science for its reflexivity, I think. Eman, please explain what is reflexivity. Aditya says political science is also right up there with socio. Well, yeah, our political science अगर स्कूलों में पढ़ाया जाता ना civics I suppose is kind of political science, but again civics पे भी उतना attention जाता नहीं है लोगों का. Um, Sudipto says, Eman, yes, the calculusization of economics and biologization of psychology in particular. Lobsters, man, lobsters. Eman says, Sudipti, yeah, you get it. And not just biologization of psychology, even calculusization of, wow, of psychology. These people want to test everything for statistical significance. Yeah, that all comes from engineering thinking. You can't you can't solve social issues with statistics, and we have plenty of examples of that already. I think there has been at least one episode in the past where I've talked about the limits of tech utopianism, like the idea that technology can and will solve all problems. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, but I balk at the idea that people think that science and technology will solve social problems even if we don't pay attention to power equations. Like I think I had an episode where I talked about the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars in this respect. Sudipta says, Eman, even math is reflexive. I think they have to state whatever they're assuming. Arun says, once I said in Abhijit Chawda comment section that Porus was most likely beaten by Alexander. They called me woke anti woke anti national. Okay. हाँ वो तो उनका अलग हिस्ट्री बुक है ना वो व्हाट्सएप से छप के आता है. There are multiple historical perspectives about certain events. If you study history like history is supposed to be studied, you will have to remain open to multiple possibilities. Not, I will reject this one because this does not appeal to my contemporary sense of patriotism. अगस्त said your average Harari fan. Harari fan होने में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है as long as like you know हरारी के अलावा दूसरी किताबें भी पढ़ी होनी चाहिए. Like I have a huge problem with people who read one book and decide they have understood everything. Like read Harari and then read some criticisms of Harari. Harari's book is fine, I suppose. But the problem is when something becomes a bestseller and there is a crowd of people who have only read that one book and they think that they understand everything because they've read that one book. It's very religious, in fact. It's focus on one book. Random Turd says, have you heard of the Kalam cosmological argument about God? If not, then how do you think the universe came to be? I have heard of this argument. I would recommend that if you want to talk about it, come back some other episode and we can have a face to face. If not, then please go to YouTube and search for Kalam cosmological argument debunked. You will find 1000 videos. It has been debunked in 1000 different ways by 1000 different people. Sudipto says they have a chapter in math in class 9 called Euclid, where students first understand that all math assumes things. And 2020 में COVID के समय वो chapter was redacted from syllabus Lamao. Oh, I didn't know this. Sakshi says, but economic forecasting is not scientific. There is a term for that called illusion of skill. Yeah, so this kind of sort of has to do with what Ayman was bringing up a little while ago. Economics is a humanities subject. Economics cannot forecast the future in scientifically effective ways. There are other ways of doing it, or maybe there are not other ways of doing it. I don't disagree with you on this. Agastya says, bro, this is India. Software engineers are dime a dozen. Yeah, we produce vast numbers of software engineers or engineers who are pretty much completely unemployable, largely because, again, lack of focus on another humanity subject, literature. A large number of Indian engineers are unemployable because they lack communication skills. Like if you are going to work in a company, you have to talk to other people and explain what you want to say. They appear to not be good at that, and that is what makes them unemployable, in addition to perhaps other factors that I'm not even going to go into, because that's not my area. See how that works? Bisurup says, even in science, general stream like major and maths are looked down upon compared to engineering. Yeah, so there is a hierarchy. There is science, commerce, arts in college. Science ke andar there is a hierarchy of itself. But even when you are at the lowest of the science levels, you are higher than commerce. And even when you are at the lowest of the commerce levels, you are higher than the arts one. Even within arts, there is a hierarchy. When I was in arts, when I chose to be in arts, there was economics and then there was English literature. And I consciously chose to go into English literature. But economics was called a mark fetching subject, जिसके ऊपर हम एक अलग एपिसोड कर चुके हैं और शायद नहीं किए हैं. कम से कम उस पर बात किया है बहुत बार. Sakshi says, damaged science student neither understand the basics on which humanities are founded nor that actual scientific process. Water memory, Reiki are some of the things I got introduced to by oh god, by my math teacher. Really, no accounting for taste really. But I feel your pain. I know a lot of people who went through this. Still do actually. Arun says, Sakshi, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Sakshi says, Arun managed to learn things later via people like Pranav, Rationality Rules, Internet, still learning. Yeah. Pranav and other science educators like him are doing a tremendously important job. कहाँ गए? Aditya says, this live stream speaks to my experiences quite well already because I am an art student who studies democracy. There you go. Vikas says, today my relatives talking amongst themselves about Taj Mahal as Hindu temple in past. This proves to me that एज में बड़ा होना समझदारी का सबूत नहीं होता. या बाय द वे आई टेल यू समथिंग एल्स. आज से लगभग 10-15 साल पहले मैं एक मेलिंग लिस्ट पे था, राइट विंगर मेलिंग लिस्ट, क्योंकि मैं खुद राइट विंग में था मोर और लेस. और इवन अमंग राइट विंगर्स दिस आइडिया इज लाफ्ड अपॉन. लाइक समबडी रोट इन द मेलिंग ग्रुप सेइंग ताजमहल तेजो महल है था, वो दरवाजे खोलेंगे तो शिव की मूर्ति मिलेगी. एंड देयर इज दिस स्कॉलर कॉल्ड माइकल डनीनो, ही इज फ्रेंच आई थिंक. He's written a book called Lost River on the Trail of the Saraswati. Like he has helped the right wing make its intellectual case in the last few years, and in the last more than the last decade, I think. And he said, guys, please stop saying that Taj Mahal was a Shiva temple. People think we are fools. Because this makes like the intellectual aspect of the Hindu right wing, who is likely to believe in this shit, used to be slightly smarter 10 years ago, when they used to actually laugh at this idea. I promise you, if you open those uh, doors in the Taj Mahal, you will only find old jhadus or some stones or something, nothing else. And by the way, if their goal was to hide the fact that it is a Shiva temple and then they locked up those idols, why did they not remove those idols? Why did they leave it in the Taj Mahal? Yeah, ajeeb hai. It's not. It's Indo-Islamic architecture ka a great example. That is all it is. The Taj Mahal, that is. Subhanshu says, even science students haven't done so good. Well, yeah, but the thing is, science students. So there is a thing called being invisible. Science students, even regardless of what happens to them in the course of their career, at least are not invisible. When their parents look at them, they look at them with expectation. The art student has nobody looking at him with expectations. They decide within school that he's going to not do anything in life. They stop expecting things from him, and they put him in the folder saying, हाँ ये मतलब IAS एग्जाम दे देगा, अब किसी कॉलेज में लेक्चरर बन जाएगा, दैट इज इट. नोबडी एक्सपेक्ट्स मोर देन दैट फ्रॉम देम. साइंस स्टूडेंट को लेके कम से कम माँ बाप उम्मीद रखते हैं कि एमएनसी ज्वाइन करेगा, अमेरिका में रहेगा, बड़ी सैलरी पाएगा. बट एंड आई नो उसके बारे में बहुत सारी पिक्चर बन चुकी है. थ्री इडियट्स वाज वन, कि इंजीनियरिंग स्टूडेंट्स के ऊपर कितना प्रेशर होता है. I'll tell you something else. This thread that I showed you, इस thread के response में मुझे एक और thread लिखना पड़ा था because some people did not understand what I was going for, and I had to clarify a number of points there. Hold on. There was another thread. Yes, here it is. Uh, I'll show you the screen. Show you this on the screen. Let me hide your comment. Share screen. Chrome tab. Yeah. So this was called Return of the Angry Art Student. I wrote this in 2021, but I think I wrote it before that. Here, if you remember the thing I wrote some time ago titled The Loss of Science Stream Privilege, कहाँ गया? Science stream privilege. This is a follow up on that idea, one that tries to be a little more constructive after my previous barrage of mostly unfiltered discontent. I want to make this note about the system as it exists now and what all can be done to bring about the shift we need with respect to the space that humanities occupy in modern Indian society. Believe it or not, the problem is not the science stream. The problem is that we put the science stream on a pedestal and use it as a benchmark to measure all other modes of academic expression. I still get asked if I agree with the following sentiment. Science students can do arts things easily, but art students can't do science things. And it is also implied that the corollary is true, that art students therefore are less intelligent than science students. And the last and most offensive part of the equation, science students are better at everything. So let's break this equation down. Are all science students good at science? If I had a paisa for every time an actual doctor or engineer sent me an unadulterated pseudoscientific garbage over WhatsApp, I would not need a Patreon page. Getting into the science stream in India has little to do with getting a science education. Most do it for employment or for bragging rights. People love a little doctor before their names, or even that bewildering ER thing that engineers use these days because they were not happy that doctors get a shiny label and they can't have one. Science in an ideal world is about exploration and curiosity. We don't live in that ideal world. In this country, we live in a world where people enter the sciences because historically technical careers are proven stable. People usually don't have to fight their parents to become engineers and doctors. Those professions are part of the established careers template, the thing you are expected to do in order to be normal. And somewhere down the line, these templates stopped caring about even competence. We produce hordes of subpar engineers every year. Young people who are good at neither the subject that they went through because it spells stability for their families, nor at anything else because they were never allowed to pursue another interest. Unsurprisingly, many employers say that India's crop of young engineers lacks communication skills and is unemployable as a result. यहाँ पे link है एक study का. Fact is, much of the Indian education system, science as well as arts, is not at all about learning. It is about winning competitions, scoring, and eventually getting to a point where you can hang your certificates on the wall. I just ran a quick search for mark fetching subject, and well, the results never fail to break my heart. And here they are. कोरा क्वेश्चन है what are the mark fetching subjects in ICSE? Is anthropology a mark fetching subject? What is the most scoring and easily optional subject in IAS? What are the best subjects for optionals in OAS exam? What is a good optional subject for IAS exam where I can score? People googling these things are not bothered about learning. They just want to pass exams. It breaks my heart to see anthropology on there. These are areas that are nothing short of an exploration of the human condition itself, and we are using them like slot machines to end up with large number on a piece of paper with minimal effort. Next question. Are all art students bad at science? This question calls for a more nuanced response because those who ask it are often somewhat binary in their mindset. This means that they have been brainwashed into thinking of the world as being divided into two kinds of people: smart folks who choose science and dumb folks who get into arts. What they often neglect to do is acknowledge the social aspect of it. And the reason they don't do it is because it would mean having to acknowledge their own privilege in India's academic scheme of things. We have this system where, right from childhood, mathematics and sciences are treated as being more important than art, dance, music, and literature. We are given some leeway, of course. You can do those frivolous things on the side, we are told, as long as you don't make them your central priority. Focus on what will get you marks, because marks will get you jobs, and jobs will get you respect, and respect will get you married, and then you will get to do all these things to your children until cosmic cows perish in the heat death of the universe. Small wonder then that almost everyone, regardless of their aptitude and interest, ends up clinging to science subjects, not science, mind you, just science subjects for their lives. And when many of them prove to be human enough to fail in subjects they have no interest in anyway, they get into the arts. Why? Because in our system, that is the space that has always been reserved for them because they failed. Remember? Failures go into arts. We have created this atmosphere where we think of the arts as a place where failure goes. I cannot emphasize this enough. We don't perceive art students as failures because they're failures. We do so because we define the art stream as a place for those who are failures. We have marked the art stream as a trash can where academic rejects go. And in the eyes of the great Indian education system, an academic reject is anyone who does not fare well in science subjects. It may be argued that our standard of excellence is rather unforgiving and that we only value the most exceptionally skilled or talented. I think that's a heap of cow dung because we don't have high standards. If we did, we would not be condemning half of tomorrow's workforce to the sidelines and treating them like second rate citizens in the school going world. If we had high standards, we would have a more holistic education system, one that allows children more flexibility of choice at a young age so they don't have to waste half their lives working towards jobs that might well not exist by the time that they're adults. And of course, it goes without saying that because we think of the art stream as unimportant, we also think of those who enter it willingly as less than. There is enormous stigma associated with getting into the art stream in India. Even if you are someone who never took an engineering or medical entrance because you were not interested and actually chose the humanities over the science stream, you will still get looked down upon because you went to that place where only fools, or if you're feeling particularly sexist today, girls go. It is possible for someone to be good at studies and not choose the science stream because they prioritize arts. The reason many don't do this and end up at least trying to fit the science stream mold is because of parental, societal, and peer pressure. And these same pressures are right now molding our political landscape into a nightmare. A nightmare that involves not only adding expenses to academic institutions that teach humanities subjects like sociology and history, but also physically attacking students who pursue their futures in these institutions and imprisoning scholars who teach humanities subjects. The elder in your family who once rhetorically asked you, "Arts leke kya hoga?" is the same one who is right now saying, "उन JNU जामिया वालों के साथ यही होना चाहिए." Our our utter disregard and disrespect for humanities subject is now being spoken quite openly by our Sanghi family members. This is not a coincidence. This is something that has been brewing for decades, and now finally there is a political climate that helps it come to the surface. Mm, where was I? Where was I? Yes. Um, Bisurup says Indian middle classes also do not encourage their sons and daughters to take research in pure sciences. As I said, individual hierarchies. Taranga is here. Hi. Here, here. Thank you for the shout out to professional social workers. Always, always. The most important people, in my opinion. Sakshi says coming to arts from science is not easy to, at least in starting. All that history debate, history was taught wrong in textbooks, etc. अरे उसके बारे में तो एक अलग एपिसोड ही कर सकता हूँ मैं. इसके ऊपर एक कॉमिक बनाया था वैसे, कि जब क्लास में हिस्ट्री पढ़ाई जा रही थी इन महानुभावों को तो सो रहे थे, और जब अब हिस्ट्री विस्ट्री अरे किसी तरह निकाल लो, पास मार्क कम करके, अब जब इंजीनियर बन चुके हैं तो व्हाट्सएप पे हर रोज हिस्ट्री का ज्ञान पेलते हैं. कुछ नहीं आता पर ज्ञान पेलते हैं. एमन सेज आई एम गोइंग फॉर डिनर, मैं आके रिफ्लेक्सिविटी एक्सप्लेन करती हूँ. बी राइट बैक. ओके. फाइन 2006 says how do I know if I am biased against the arts? How would I know? How would I know if you're biased? Vikas says, in childhood, I was mocking my younger sister because she chose art stream after 10th as I was brainwashed by common social thought. Exactly. There's nothing like if you realize that you're brainwashed and you're no longer doing that thing, it's okay. But yeah, this just goes to show that we all, like, there are art students who think of themselves as inferior. It's not like everyone who goes into arts chooses to go into arts. There are art students who I know of at least one kid who went into arts, studied literature, but उसके फेसबुक बायो पे सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर लिखा हुआ है क्योंकि ही इज ashamed to say that he studied English literature. I hope he's changed his mind now at least. Vikas says, in childhood, okay, already read that. Taranga says, science and technology don't solve anything in themselves unless they're used to ensure statistically 100% that every single person's basic needs are met. Yes. Tech utopianism, like the idea that science and technology will solve all problems, that all we need to fight is irrationality. All of this does not take into account the fact that huge chunks of the problems that society suffers from right now are because of discrimination and inequality. Unless sociological efforts are made to address those matters, tech will do ghanta. Tech will only make the already privileged people happy that they have a new iPhone. अरे दुनिया बदल रही है, हर किसी के पास फ़ोन है। अबे गधे! बहुत से लोग हैं जिनके पास फ़ोन नहीं है। बहुत से लोग हैं जिनके पास फ़ोन आने के बाद भी उस फ़ोन को इस्तेमाल करने का नॉलेज नहीं है। उस फ़ोन को इस्तेमाल करके अपने ओपिनियंस को सोशल मीडिया पे रख के जेल ना जाने का हक नहीं है। वो प्रॉब्लम्स पहले आनी चाहिए। Aditya says there is some value in using statistical tools in political and legal primary research in checking for patterns in judgment or in parliamentary debate, but it should be used in a narrow context. Exactly. I agree. Statistical understandings of large populations are important. However, we make a mistake when we think that statistical understanding of something like our country alone will solve all problems. This is the kind of mistake that the designers of the Aadhaar system made, and that is why we are where we are right now. If there is statistically a 1% or 2% error rate in the system, that means millions of people. So when you are saying that it's a minor rate, you're essentially condemning millions of people to a lack of identity and a lack of everything that the ability to confirm that identity can bring. Agastya says Sapiens is not fine. It's been trashed by academics left and right for the same thing you're talking about in this stream. Well, no book is not trashed by academics. I'm saying that Sapiens at least is a book that got people's attention to thinking about some matters. Sapiens at the end of the day is a popular science book or a popular information book. It is not supposed to be the last book that people address, the last book that people read in order to understand all of reality. In that limited context, it's fine, I think. Sure, academics will have opinions about it, but a book being criticized by people does not mean that the book has no value. That's how, public discourse about literature or, books happens. People trash things. Augustus says also math is inconsistent and it's been proved by mathematicians. Okay. I don't know what that has to do with. Anyway. Adit, Aditya Raj Singh Gohil says Gujarat Standard 11 Arts economic textbooks have short notes of import. What? I don't know what that means. Sorry. कहाँ गया? Hey, Milind has sent a 100 rupee super sticker. Thank you, Milind, for the donation. You're always very generous. Thank you for doing this. Hmm. Taranga says, absolutely, Aditya. My biggest problem is that there is this false notion perpetuated that the study of humanity is not based on scientific temperament, which in itself is different from stats and maths. Yes. Taranga, I think you also had a point about the tendency to think of social issues as something to solve, right? You've spoken about this in the past, and I don't remember exactly what it was. Even qualitative research in humanities is based on scientific principles only. Jasmine Hazarika says people who have good quantitative abilities don't understand how people could be bad in maths. They also don't understand a lot of other things. Like people who have great quantitative abilities will go through their engineering exam and then they will become a pilot and then they will do a puja in their house and say that Hinduism is a very scientific religion because if you do Havan, the Bhopal gas tragedy will not have affected you. So quantitative ability does nothing to take away the power of culturally imposed stupidity. Mm, Nadir is here. Hi, Nadir. Hello. Thank you for being a member. Agastya says, my physics professor went on about Hanuman Chalisa and physics and some Indian physics. This happened in degree. Go figure. Huh. So this was obviously a Savarna professor, right? This was obviously someone who was, educated in the modern way of teaching, but chose to discard it and focus on what his Brahminical upbringing was telling him to be the true nature of the universe. By the way, I'll just remind everyone that this channel, I'm an independent content creator. This live stream is supported and sponsored by people like you. There is a join button below. Click on it to become a member of the channel if you want to pay every month a certain amount, which is 160 rupees right now. And if you don't want to, you can support me on Patreon. That is patreon.com/Vimo. This is where you can make a monthly or annual pledge and support this channel. And if you don't want to do that also, if you want to just make a one-time donation, you can do so by clicking on vimo.stck.me or just visiting this URL. Vimo.stck.me is my blog. You can read all the articles that I just mentioned and also support me with a one-time donation. Also, I think there is a thanks button under this video now. So if you click on it, that also is another method for you to make a one-time donation. Anyway, we shall return to where we were. Hmm. Wow, it just started raining. I was just talking to Nadir earlier today how the sound of wind is very scary in this part of the world. Sudipta says Taranga, that's just 10%. Okay, I'm skipping because people are talking to each other. Vikas says inflation इतनी बढ़ गई है but jobs में starting salary 10k 15k ही क्यों है for common people. This is the year 2022. Starting salaries are 8,000 to 15,000. When I got my first job back in 2006 7, my starting salary was 18,000 rupees, which was on the higher end of obviously, but still it was 18,000 rupees. And मैं आजकल के बच्चों को देखता हूँ शुरू करते हुए ऐसी घटिया सैलरीज पे, and then I look at the prices of things in the market and it's quite sad. Um, Taranga says, so most good social science research is mixed methods only, Vairu. See any good policy research paper, for example. Okay. Sumana is here. Hey, all old Vimohians. Hi, Sumana. Uh, Vikas says, what is your opinion on the quote, no pain, no gain? I think this is usually said by people who don't experience any pain and only gain. But yeah, there is some philosophical meaning to this, as in struggle is important. But when it is used by hustle culture bros, I take it with a pinch of salt, or rather a sack of salt. Nader says, I made a decent paneer roll. My neighbor claimed he made it and tried to steal it. Thing is, he makes a decent sandwich himself. This, in short, is the right wing inferiority complex. I was saying today कि ये जो ताजमहल को शिव मंदिर साबित करने की कोशिश है, this is the Hindutva brigade trying to steal Islamic heritage. खुद बनाया नहीं कुछ, पर ये वाला हमको चाहिए. Taranga says also there is a qualitative aspect in all quantitative questions of research as well. What you decide to gather numbers on and how you analyze what those numbers are saying is qualitative choice only. Yeah. So there is no there is the assumption that numbers automatically provide objective understandings is false because a lot depends on who's collecting the numbers, the methods using which they're collecting the numbers, and the intention to which they're putting the results of the study that they conducted. So that all also needs to be kept in mind. Devil Moon says students in schools and colleges are taught only how to solve sums, and that is why they don't understand concepts. This is also exacerbated by tuition classes. अरे tuition classes, I'll give you a humanities वाला example. I don't know why I'm holding a कैंची. मेरे हाथ में कुछ ना कुछ आ जाता है अपने आप, प्रकट हो जाता है. I think I have magical powers. Uh, there is a poet called Vikram Seth. He had written a poem, I forget the name, and this was in our English course. And in this poem, there was mention of a frog who lends his pen to the bog trumpet. Now, I assumed that the bog trumpet was a newspaper or a publication for which the frog is writing a column, because lends his pen to the bog trumpet seems to mean that. पर हमारे जो इंग्लिश के ट्यूशन मास्टर थे, उन्होंने डिसाइड किया कि जो इंग्लिश का गाइड बुक है जिसका इस्तेमाल करके वो हमको पढ़ा रहे थे, उसमें कुछ गलत हो ही नहीं सकता. और उसमें लिखा था कि द बर्ग ट्रम्पेट इज अ म्यूजिकल नोट इन्वेंटेड बाय द फ्रॉग. आई डोंट नो व्हिच जीनियस केम अप विद दिस, बट मैं बोलता रहा. माय टीचर सेड यू आर रॉन्ग, द बुक इज राइट. ऑल माय क्लासमेट सेड तो बुक से ज्यादा जानता है. और सबने एग्जाम में वो गलत आंसर लिखा और सबको टीचर ने सही मार्क दिए उस गलत आंसर के लिए. मैं अकेला था जिसने सही आंसर लिखा और मैंने जीरो पाए उस आंसर में. सो हमारा जो गुरुजी गलत बोल ही नहीं सकते, added to the guru himself thinking that he can't make a mistake and that the student is wrong to question. That itself is another part of the problem. ये science arts हर जगह आता है. Taranga says there is a scientific prioritization in choosing indicators and their analysis, Vayu. Like numbers will tell you IMR slash MMR, but what tells you what to make of high or low IMR, MMR, that is qualitative. Yeah. Arun says that Taj Mahal thing is legit toxic. We just need to find every excuse to hate on the Mughals. Muslims, just say Muslims, man. Mughals तो बहाना है. तुमको लगता है ये जो हेट मंगरिंग न्यूज़ एंकर्स हैं, जिनमें से कुछ को अभी पिछले 4-5 दिनों में थोड़ा मतलब डर मिला है अपनी ज़िंदगी में, तुम्हें लगता है कि वो मुगलों से नफ़रत करते हैं? Mughal word is a stand-in for Muslim. The word jihadi is a stand-in for Muslim. Their enemy, their target is the Indian Muslim. ये सब वो साफ-साफ मतलब जो अपने आप को थोड़ा बहुत सभ्य समझता है, वो ये थोड़ी बोलेगा मैं मुसलमानों से नफ़रत करता हूँ। वो बोलेगा मैं मुगलों से नफ़रत करता हूँ। मैं जिहादियों से नफ़रत करता हूँ। सो ये इट्स ट्रांसपेरेंट उसमें ज़्यादा कॉम्प्लिकेशन नहीं है। अ, Nadir says stats can tell you whatever you want it to tell you if you don't practice intellectual honesty. Yeah. And that kind of honesty is rare. And that kind of honesty can only be maintained by academic scrutiny of each other's work. Sakshi says comments on the Saraswati Civilization by G.D. Bakshi. I don't remember reading this book, Sakshi. I'm sorry. Um, विकास सेज वेमो भैया इंडिया में एंथ्रोपोलॉजी पेलियोंटोलॉजी कॉस्मोलॉजी एस्ट्रोनॉमी एस्ट्रोफिजिक्स जैसे सब्जेक्ट फेमस क्यों नहीं है एक्सेप्ट ओनली इंजीनियर डॉक्टर एक्सट्रीमली लैक ऑफ दीज फील्ड्स हमारे यहाँ हैं ये सब लोग पर when a student is getting out of school or college the only avenues that people make available to them off the bat are engineering and medical मुझे लगता है कि एक बहुत बड़ी ज़रूरत है ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा करियर ऑप्शंस को बच्चों के सामने एट ए यंग एज रखना लाइक फिफ्थ स्टैंडर्ड में पढ़ने वाले बच्चे को पता होना चाहिए एंथ्रोपोलॉजी क्या है एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट क्या करते हैं एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट बनने के लिए तुमको क्या क्या सब्जेक्ट चॉइसेस करने हैं मेरा तो ये भी मानना है कि एट अ यंगर एज चिल्ड्रन शुड बी अलाउड टू चूज देयर सब्जेक्ट्स लाइक फिफ्थ स्टैंडर्ड के बाद शायद उससे पहले भी तुम बच्चों को बोलो कि तेरा टोटल मार्क 100 है राइट तू डिसाइड कर उसमें से 50% तो किस सब्जेक्ट पे सब्जेक्ट से लेना चाहता है अगर किसी बच्चे का आर्ट बहुत अच्छा है, ड्राइंग बहुत अच्छा है, वो मे बी दे दे शुड बी फ्री टू से मैं अपने 100 में से 50% आर्ट से बनाना चाहता हूँ और उसको वो एबिलिटी देनी चाहिए। और वो बच्चा आर्ट्स में अच्छा परफ़ॉर्म करके 50% लाएगा, बाकी सब्जेक्ट पे भी मेहनत करेगा, बट दोज़ सब्जेक्ट्स विल नॉट बी द मेक और ब्रेक फैक्टर्स इन हिज़ जर्नी टू हिज़ करियर। अगर किसी को मैथमेटिक्स में इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, तो उसको मैथमेटिशियन बनाने का क्या पॉइंट है? उसको आर्ट पे फ़ोकस करने दो, उसको म्यूज़िक पे फ़ोकस करने दो, उसको स्पोर्ट्स पे फ़ोकस करने दो। पर नहीं, हमको सबको इंजीनियर बनाना है और बनने के बाद अनएम्प्लॉयबल होके घूमेंगे। Taranga says, yes, Nadir. But also, math is just like science and tech in this respect. It is not even about intellectual honesty. It is simply a political question. What are you looking for numbers towards? Huh. So, I think Nadir was saying that only, right? He was talking about the importance of objectivity, the importance of understanding that you should look at the numbers as they are and not attach value to not attach meanings to the findings that you find there unless I'm mistaken. Sudipto says in National Institute of Open Schooling, the open school equivalent of CBSE, the mark fetching subject in the discourse FB group are painting, home science, data entry, Hindi, English. I don't know anything about this. Nadir says, we have seen closely this government use stats selectively time and again. Yeah. Taranga says all research is thesis and hypothesis and synthesis, hence political. Thus spake Marx Dadu and thus heard by researchers who are materialists. Sumana says tech pays well mostly. Even if you are an average engineer, you will be making more money than a lot of people. Talking from US point of view. Yeah. Aditya says, I love the art subjects I took and the law research I do. I went into it willingly. I'm proud of myself, but it's sometimes difficult to be looked down upon a bit. Yeah. Especially when you're young, when you don't know who you are and your sense of self-worth comes from what other people think about you at that age thinking about whether you are good enough for the world around you for your own family It can be quite traumatizing. Varu says, have a question though. Can you really blame people in a country with such widespread poverty as India to give more values to paths that tend to bring in money comparatively quickly? I'm not blaming the people, I'm blaming the system. If a system is designed in such a way that people will not be able to sustain themselves without entering only a couple of professions, and these professions necessitate the study of dry subjects like mathematics and science without them getting any understanding of the human condition, of social problems, etc., then when I say that the country is doing badly because of it, am I blaming the people? No, I'm blaming the system. Sure, people make up the system, people propagate the system, and to whatever extent that the people are responsible for propagating the system that I'm talking about right now, I do blame people. But I'm not blaming the people of the country in that wide a sense. Mm. Sumana says that's one of the reasons why I feel most people move to tech. I have seen a lot of non-tech background people moving to tech too. Huh. So that may be the case. Also, I think I could add to this that these days everyone is in tech, right? If you are online, if you are presenting your opinion, like nobody is not in tech. There is no company that is not a tech company. Amazon sells books and it is a tech company. Google is a tech company. Microsoft is a tech company, tech company. Your local real estate guy is doing using tech to do his thing. Your kirane ki dukan is using tech for his stuff. So the move to tech backgrounds is sensible in one respect, as in you said that people from arts backgrounds are moving to tech. But I suppose the entirety of civilization itself is kind of in the tech sphere right now. Vikas says in a previous live session, you said why you were a fan of Elon. Well, I agree, but फिर भी क्या Elon की तारीफ नहीं करनी चाहिए as he did and doing which no other billionaire or ultra rich never thought and did? No, he's not doing anything. That is PR. That is advertising. He is not actually doing anything that is actually useful. वो अपने आप को प्रमोट करने के लिए ये सब कर रहा है. और बाय द वे वो उसने अब तक ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं किया है जो उससे पहले के किसी बिलियनर ने नहीं किया है. और बाय द वे हम एक बिलियनर की प्रशंसा किस लिए कर रहे हैं? सिर्फ इसलिए क्योंकि उसके पास पैसा है? क्योंकि अगर वो कारण नहीं है तो क्या कारण है? He did not invent anything. He did not build anything. He did not create any of the technologies that his companies are using. Other people did that. क्या तुमको उन लोगों की प्रशंसा नहीं करनी चाहिए? क्या तुमको उन लोगों की प्रशंसा नहीं करनी चाहिए जिनकी जिनकी अपार मेहनत की वजह से अमेज़न आज वो कंपनी बन सकी है जो वो है? जब वो लोग अपने आप को यूनियन बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं, तो जेफ बेज़ोस लोगों को पैसे देके उनके यूनियंस को तोड़ने की कोशिश करता है। वही पैसे वो उनको सैलरी के रूप में दे सकता था। बिलियनियर्स की प्रशंसा सिर्फ इसलिए कर रहे हो क्योंकि उनके पास पैसा है? सीरियसली? Alien says, I wish there was more chance for interdisciplinary studies like arts and humanities and science subjects together. Yeah, that's the whole point. Aditya says, Taranga, you're absolutely right. One cannot remove politics and bias from our research. We can only attempt to set it aside for humanities, in my experience. Fine says, I would also love the dissolution of the stream system. I personally would love to pick maths and philosophy together, but sadly, that combination is rather rare to come by. This is why, like the book that I mentioned earlier, Martha Nussbaum ka for not for profit, it mentions that the American liberal arts education system was inspired by ideas of Rabindranath Tagore. Like Rabindranath Tagore created the system where children would be freely floating between subjects and learn that way. And this idea was picked up by American education system and now it is based on that. और हम लोग आज तक अंग्रेजों के ज़माने का एजुकेशन सिस्टम पकड़ कर बैठे हैं. हा हा. Vairu says, won't it be considered a privilege in India to have the ability to choose subjects other than science? Unless we not make it a privilege. If we make it a commonplace thing, then it will not be a privilege. It is a privilege right now. And it should not be. When I say that some people have food, some people have milk on their breakfast table and many people don't, I'm not saying that everyone aspiring to have milk at breakfast time that's asking too much because it's a privilege. I'm saying everyone should have milk. And I think it is possible to have a system where everyone has milk on their breakfast table. Nadir says technocracy falsely portrayed centralized, fragile identification, not even authorization, as a panacea for ills at the cost of collateral damage of false negatives. Ration denied. Hmm. मुझे पूरी तरह से समझ में नहीं आया सेंटेंस, बट अभी पेशेंस नहीं है। 1 घंटा 5 मिनट हो गया गाइस, मैं शायद और 5-10 मिनट के लिए करूँगा, फिर लाइव बंद कर दूँगा। अभी चैट में इमोजी टाइप करना शुरू कर दो ताकि वहाँ तक पहुँचने के बाद मैं और कमेंट ना पढूँ। Random Turd says, do you think if India was not colonized or had been a Buddhist majority country, our perception of arts would have been different? No way to know. There is no way to know what would have happened if a certain thing had happened back then. But yeah, the state that we are in right now, a huge chunk of it is because of Brahmanism. The kind of things we focus on, the kind of things we speak about as scientific when there is no foundation for such, is a direct result of Brahmanical thinking. Nadir has pointed out something interesting. Myanmar and Sri Lanka were Buddhist majority countries. Yeah. And by the way, when I wrote that first thread, a lot of the comments I got from people who saying, "Oh my God, I'm not from India, but this is completely true about my country also." They were from other South Asian countries, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, etc. So this is a subcontinental problem, not specifically an Indian problem. The reason I call it an Indian problem is because India is the largest example of it, and because I'm from India. Shreya says, I feel it requires privilege to go into arts just because you like it. पैसा नहीं है उधर तो lower middle and middle class parents अपने बच्चों को साइंस में धकेलते हैं thinking it will change their lives. That is a good point. And that is a true point. My point is that we should not abandon this quest simply because आर्ट्स में जाना प्रिविलेज है. वी शुड बिल्ड अ सिस्टम वेयर आर्ट्स में जाने के बाद भी लोगों के पास करियर ऑप्शंस हों, जहां आर्ट्स में जाने से लोगों को डिस्करेज ना किया जाए, क्योंकि लोग कई बार ऐसा भी देखने को मिलता है कि आर्ट्स में जाके एक बच्चे का फ्यूचर ब्राइट है, पर उसको जाने दिया ही नहीं जाता क्योंकि बाकी सारे बच्चे इंजीनियर बनना चाहते हैं। दादाजी ने कहा कि तुझे डॉक्टर बनना है, मामा जी के 4 बेटे डॉक्टर हैं, देख तू कैसे नहीं बनेगा? ज़रूर बनेगा, तो ये ले डंडे खा और डॉक्टर बन। It's not always a matter of privilege. Even privileged people who can go into the arts are discouraged from doing so. Rajiv says, I get why people are. Hi, Rajiv, by the way. I get why people are bashing Sapiens, but what Sapiens did was get people interested in anthropology and human history, just like Star Trek inspired a generation of rocket scientists. Yes, that was my point. Taranga says, you are 100 years behind comments, Vimo. Don't think of them as answering what you are saying at this moment. Oh, okay. Let me skip a few. Wait. Oh, wow. I'm really 100 years behind chat. Wow. I'm so far behind chat. Nadir says, agree, Rajiv. By the way, Nadir, meet Rajiv, an old friend. Rajiv, meet Nadir, a relatively new friend, but you're both nice people, so you should hang out. Shreya says, so arts classes are either full of people who have the fallback option to choose it without being worried about their finances in the future, or people who could not get into science. Unfortunate. Yes. Also, in journalism college, so मेरी पूरी life है, I have gone for the thing that nobody else wanted to go into because, and the only reason they went there is because if they fell into it by default. So मैंने आर्ट्स चूज़ किया जहाँ पे लोग जाना नहीं चाहते पर गिर जाते हैं आर्ट्स में. आर्ट्स के अंदर मैंने इंग्लिश लिटरेचर चूज़ किया जहाँ पे लोग जाना नहीं चाहते कि पर जाना पड़ता है अगर इकोनॉमिक्स में नहीं मिला तो. फिर वहाँ से निकल के मैंने जर्नलिज्म कॉलेज में हमारे स्ट्रीम्स थे टीवी मीडिया, प्रिंट मीडिया एंड देन न्यू मीडिया. न्यू मीडिया साइबर मीडिया. और मैंने कॉन्शियसली न्यू मीडिया चूज़ किया क्योंकि मुझे इंटरनेट बहुत पसंद था. एंड इन माय न्यू मीडिया क्लास ऑफ अबाउट 25 पीपल, देयर वर 2 पीपल इन इट हू हैड एक्चुअली चोज़न न्यू मीडिया. बाकी सब दे चोज़ ब्रॉडकास्ट मीडिया और प्रिंट मीडिया बट दे कुडंट गेट इन, देयरफॉर दे वर आस्क्ड टू कंसीडर न्यू मीडिया. दैट इज़ हाउ दे एंडेड अप देयर. किसी का मन नहीं था पर आ गए किसी तरह से. मैं और एक लड़की थी प्रिया, हम दोनों को छोड़ के कोई न्यू मीडिया में जाना ही नहीं चाहता था. और अब देखो, हर कोई न्यू मीडिया में है. Newspapers have websites, TV channels have websites. The new media people are already obviously already here. But yeah, हमको तब बोला जाता था कि इंडिया में साइबर मीडिया का ज़्यादा फ्यूचर नहीं है. क्योंकि साइबर मीडिया के लिए एक जैसे अखबार है, तुमने 2 रुपए दिए, खरीद लिए और तुम्हारे हाथ में अखबार है, तुम उसको लेके कहीं भी जा सकते हो। बट ऑनलाइन वेबसाइट से न्यूज़ पढ़ने के लिए हार्डवेयर रिक्वायरमेंट होती है और हर कोई कंप्यूटर खरीद नहीं सकता। एंड दिस वाज़ द एज व्हेन डेस्कटॉप computers वर द नॉर्म and laptop computers were expensive. Nobody imagined that one day we will all be carrying this in our pockets. And this happened. The smartphone revolution propelled the internet and the media landscape at a speed into the future that was until that point unimaginable. Um, Sorry. Random Turd says he's never reaching this point in comments. He's reading 10:35 के comments when it's 10:51. I will read all the comments until I reach the emoji point. Okay? ये वैसा लाइव स्टेज नहीं है जहाँ पे लोग बात करते करते कभी कभी चैट के ऊपर नजर डाल देते हैं और जो मिलता है उसको पढ़ के हंस देते हैं विदाउट इवन टेकिंग द नेम ऑफ द पर्सन. यहाँ सब पढ़ा जाएगा. Taranga says, respectfully disagree, Shreyas. Most STEM higher education is privatized and admissions rely on donation system, which is why poorer people don't get into STEM as much. Well, that's another point. Taranga says, yes, cyclone, stay safe. Oh, wow, मैं कमेंट में इतना पीछे हूँ. जब बारिश बोला था तब ये कमेंट आया था. साक्षी says, अगर पॉइंट करो कि अंकल ये हवन से पोल्यूशन नहीं जाता, हिंदुत्व पीपल आर हैप्पी टू पब्लिकली से बेटा हमको विज्ञान नहीं पता है. या फिर उसका उल्टा भी बोल देते हैं ना, हमको सब पता है. Nadir says engineering has gotten way more expensive even in the last 15 years alone, along with everything else, I presume, right? Aditya says economic texts have essays and short notes on Pandit Deen Dayal, philosophy and economic, and Gandhi's Swaraj dystopia. Acha. Agastya says, LOL, the ancient tech folks are Indian equivalent of aliens guy. Yeah. वो बोलता था aliens. ये लोग बोलते हैं, ये क्या बोलते हैं? Ancient culture. एक्चुअली उनमें से कुछ एलियन भी बोल डालते हैं कभी कभी मन करता है तो. It's quite jumping all over the place. Vikram says, be an atheist, debunk all myths. This is a lesson for all the beasts who graduated from IIT. Well, if you can find me people in IIT who are actual materialist atheists, I'll be happy to talk with them. But I think many of them will call themselves Hindu atheists. हर रोज 2-3 नमूने मिल जाते हैं. Taranga says, hey, please feel free to ignore my research related comments, Fimo. I was just responding to Vairu in the chat. Vikas says, Sandeep Maheshwari जैसे लोग बच्चों को मोटिवेट करते हैं to do better in life. What is your opinion on motivational speakers? विकास, हमने मोटिवेशनल स्पीकर्स के ऊपर एक पूरा लाइव स्ट्रीम किया था 2 एपिसोड पहले, उसको जाके देख लो. राइट. Eman says reflexivity in simple words is when the researcher slash discipline is aware of their position when studying or talking about something. Okay. Reflexivity. So they account for their personal bias is what you're saying? Okay. Augusta says, Taranga, true mate. Even in math and physics, the philosophy behind these things as to what means what is a discussion of its own. Eman says reflexivity also talks about how the relationship between cause and effect is not linear but circular. Okay. Aditya Singh says Gujarati newspapers have Vidharmi for daily hate and they have defined love jihad and classified WhatsApps. It's amazing in the column they never mention definition, context or even what event. मुझे गुजरात से मतलब I don't know much about this stuff so I won't comment. But it's not surprising. HG says, I graduated in the arts and went into the corporate world for financial reasons. Always feel out of place. Most colleagues have little interest in social awareness. To them, the end justifies any means. Yeah, that's the kind of society you become when you discourage young people from going into the humanities. Because your understanding of the world is very black and white, right? मतलब गरीब लोग गरीब हैं क्योंकि वो लोग मेहनत नहीं करते और मेहनत को प्रायोरिटाइज करने से जिस टाइप के कल्चर का निर्माण होता है उसके बारे में हम लोग वो हसल कल्चर वाले एपिसोड में बात कर चुके हैं. बाय द वे उस एपिसोड के थंबनेल में मैंने हॉर्स शिट वर्ड यूज़ किया था इसलिए वो एपिसोड पार्शियली डिमोनेटाइज हो गया बट मैंने थंबनेल चेंज नहीं किया. Before I proceed, let me do a fun thing, which is that if you have not subscribed to my gaming channel, I'm going to give you a link to my gaming channel and hope that you subscribe to it because I'm posting regular gaming content there. It's a way for me to let off steam because uh, mentally it has been quite tiresome in the last few weeks and months. So I'm playing some games and I'm putting up footage of that. So I'm putting a link to my gaming channel in the chat. If anyone wants to subscribe, please do. 100 सब्सक्राइबर तक पहुंचा दो ताकि मैं यूआरएल सेट कर सकूं. Vikas says Sadhguru said once that every Muslim should destroy the monuments built by Babur because he was attacker. What you tell? Well, सदगुरु को मेरे पास देने के लिए कुछ खास आंसर है नहीं. उनको तो सब पता है और जो भी पता है, जो भी बताते हैं वो सब गलत है. It's amazing how wrong a man can be. He's wrong about almost everything. Aditya Raj Singh Gohil says, I used to have cursive handwriting in class, standard 1 or 2. My school, I think there aren't now. As a subject, no, it doesn't exist anymore. Alien says, basically trying to solve problems only through the lens of a single discipline is going to ignore other important dimensions. Yes. This is why tech bros like Elon Musk thinking they can solve the world's energy crisis by battery powered everything ignores the unethical child labor used to mine the minerals for these batteries. Lithium. Yes. Evan says objectivity is a myth. It is impossible to not attach value. Implicit biases are real. Yes. And therefore, we should focus more on positive biases that account for, like what Eman was talking about some time ago, reflexivity, and try to compensate for them. Mr. Dhiru Kumar Bhai is here. I feel like even sports is a victim of this problem. I knew so many boys in school who started focusing on cricket so that they get into a college on sports quota. Sports का अलग ही issue है. Like it's not a humanities subject, but it still suffers from all the devaluing that goes into, like there is one student who is very good at sports but not very good at anything else, and they will be discouraged from sports because they will be asked to focus on other subjects because sports related careers are not a thing. And then there is this people who go into sports just because it's a mark fetching subject, I suppose. Alien says, and it's only going to get worse as the demand for batteries goes up with all these electric cars and stuff. Targa says, no, Vimo, I'm saying there is no complete objectivity in any research in any discipline. Why one chooses to gather numbers on infant and maternal mortality rates itself is political. Okay. But Taranga, don't you think, अच्छा, उसके बाद लिखा है, it is a qualitative and political reason one could also choose not to measure, for example, if you don't want to prevent deaths at all. Okay. Hmm. Marty Mari says aliens, yeah, people are focusing on things like EV and not things like good urban planning and public transit. Shekhar Kapoor says recently a student in our village committed, okay, suicide से पहले थोड़ा trigger warning दे दिया करो भैया. Uh, a village died by suicide after not getting selected in NEET. Whose mistake do you think it is in that? Well, obviously, the first mistake I would say would be the system that convinced him that this exam was all he was living for, right? Because if he did not think so, if he thought of an exam as a part of life and other things not being that important, I don't know what the conditions around him were. I don't know what kind of pressures he was going through, either from teachers or parents or friends or other peer groups. So I cannot comment on that. However, this students dying by suicide as a result of academic failure is not an uncommon problem in India. I myself know of at least 3 people in my school years who did this because they either failed in an exam or could not give an exam or scored lower than they had hoped for. Aditya Raj Singh Goel says IGNU has a very narrow batch design, like it's January every year, and I think you need to get to regional center for some attendance, not total merger with current degree many time clashes. या तुम्हारे sentences मुझे समझ में नहीं आते क्या लिख रहे हो regional center for some attendance अच्छा okay I have taken some IGNU classes. Fortunately the classes were in my college only, so I did not have to travel as much as obviously some other people might have to. Right, so I'm skipping a few comments. Suvana says, no, by tech, I meant actually moving to software development life cycle. I have seen a lot of nurses, graphic designers moving to quality roles. Okay. Okay. Nadir says, Elon's book was commissioned by himself, very much like Savarkar writing a book praising himself. Jerome says, what would you like to say to people who loved and studied humanities but had to regretfully switch fields for work due to various reasons? I feel their pain, man. I feel their pain. And I don't think it is easy to hold on to your area of passion when it becomes impossible to make a living doing what you love. I feel their pain. Eman says, Elon Musk is a liar, Lamau. He says, I am going to donate XYZ for this cause and never does. Yeah, there was one example of him asking United Nations to tell him exactly what they would do to for a certain thing, and if they did, he will pay them money. They did, and he did not pay them money. Random Turd says Elon is extremely talented to be born in a white South African family of a mineral mine businessman. Yeah, वो उसका merit है merit. Taranga says one can be extremely intellectually honest in running analysis on a large data set in quantitative research, Agastya. But what is that data set itself, and why was it chosen to be analyzed is purely political. Acha. Aditya Raj Singh Goel says Amazon, meanwhile, getting an abortion travel pay for employees a bit of क्या? यार तुम्हारे sentences मेरी समझ में नहीं आते. Use full sentences. I think you're texting me or something. Marty Murray says Google and Meta are advertisement companies which use tech, although IIRC Google does invest a lot in AI research, but still they are mainly advertisement. Yeah, but look at their motivations. Why are they investing in AI research? At the end of the day, their goal is profit for their own company, right? Kay says a lot of teens seem to believe that Elon is the new Einstein or something like that. Even a basic understanding of science shows otherwise. Elon is a profit hungry businessman who is good at it. Yes. By the way, anyone who wants to find out exactly how dumb his ideas are should watch a YouTube channel called Adam Something. Adam Something, search करो YouTube पे Adam Something and the channel is there. उसके अंदर जाके इलॉन मस्क से रिलेटेड जितने वीडियोस हैं आई थिंक उसने एक प्लेलिस्ट पे डाले होंगे, उसको देख सकते हो. But I am at 1 hour 22 minute guys. I don't think I can continue for much longer. अच्छा emojis आने शुरू हो गए हैं. I don't think I can read all the comments, but I will look at a few. Um, Taranga says choosing STEM for higher studies involves having money for competitive exam coaching. So it is actually overwhelmingly a privileged choice in India right now. Oh yeah, that is also a good point. So this is a response to the thing that someone said कि लोग साइंस में जाने की कोशिश करते हैं क्योंकि आर्ट्स में करियर ऑप्शन नहीं है. तरंगा इज पॉइंटिंग आउट दी साइंस में जाके हायर एजुकेशन अटेन करने के लिए जितने पैसों की जरूरत होती है, दैट अलोन मेक श्योर दैट द पीपल हु आर गोइंग इनटू साइंस फॉर करियर रीजंस, it's a privileged choice. It's not something affordable by everyone. Eman says, I think it might also be a colonial and imperial problem, not just a subcontinental problem. That's one way of looking at it, because our entire modern culture was cultivated to be employees of the empire, of the British Empire. And after the British Empire went away, the focus of the American Empire came along. So we remained employees. अभी कुछ साल पहले तक हमारा जो एक बहुत बड़ा ये था कॉल सेंटर में काम. गॉड ये मतलब दिस इज सो क्रिंज. I was preparing for journalism college, and I went to journalism college, and I came back to my hometown to and I met some young people who were also contemplating getting into media, and one of them asked me, can I do journalism course while also working in a call center? And I was like, why would you want to do that? And it turns out that the only reason they wanted to work in a call center is because the pay was high, and they thought that the intense, rigorous journalism course could be done in the daytime, and in the night time they could go work in a call center and then have fun in another city, which was obviously not their hometown. And I laughed my ass off. But yeah, that was then. I suppose everyone was optimistic about the call center culture, but we were all essentially employees. Aditya says Indian bike path on next level UAPA, not just bike city beautiful many. भैया आदित्य मुझे तुम्हारे sentences समझ में नहीं आ रहे हैं. Not just bike city beautiful many more cycling stuff sociology engineer. क्या है ये? It's a colonial problem to a large example, to a large extent, I think you meant. Yes, emoji time आ गया है, सब लोग emoji कर रहे हैं. जो अभी members हैं, मैं उन्हीं के comments पढ़ रहा हूँ बस. बेसुरूप, thank you for being a member. I read a book on Renaissance which argues that clergies who studied and developed law actually triggered scientific rationality in Europe. That's one perspective. But again, you have to realize, just as a lot of people are going into science for career prospects, There was a time in Europe when the only way you could ensure that you had the resources to pursue what you want to do, you had to be associated with the church somehow. Like if you're an artist, there is no avenue for you anywhere. You have to go and draw paintings of Jesus and Mary in a church, or you have to build steeples if you're an architect. These are, again, artistic impulses, but there was no way people could practice those impulses if they did not associate with the church. So there you go, power structure. Rajiv says, I remember a professor of anthropology at IIT Madras was trolled because she was featured in a list of women in STEM education. Wow. The trolls took issue because anthropology is history and henceforth not science. If they could have looked upon a nearby dictionary, they would have realized what the subject was about. I'm still bothered by terms like X is a bad subject, Y is a great subject. How can any form of education be bad? Very Brahmanical point of view to view education through this lens. Yeah. Some knowledge is divine knowledge, and some knowledge is mundane knowledge. Emoji time, emoji time. Random third ka comment. Since he's not reaching this point in comments, I would like to ask the other. I did reach this point in comments, random third. How do you guys think the universe came to exist? Arey yaar. Again, come next episode, we will talk about it. Sakshi says, my mother literally beats up my younger brother for performing poorly in science while she's happy to hang lemon mirchi in shop for good fortune. Oh man, don't know what to say. Right. Stay home, stay home. राइट। आज का लाइव स्ट्रीम यहीं समाप्त होता है। एंड जाने से पहले मैं एक बार आप सबको बता दूं कि दिस लाइव स्ट्रीम हैपेंस ऑन वेडनेसडे एट 10 पीएम एंड सैटरडे एट 10 पीएम। आई ऑल्सो हैव अ गेमिंग चैनल जिसका लिंक मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले शेयर किया था, एक बार फिर शेयर कर देता हूँ। एंड वुड लव इट इफ यू गाइस कैन सब्सक्राइब। होल्ड ऑन। I have recently started playing Minecraft and I intend to make more Minecraft videos. It's fun and it can also be educational, I feel. I'm thinking of some formats. I'll make content and I'll put it out. What we are going to do is that anyway, I'll talk about the gaming channel plans on the gaming channel, not here. But please subscribe. If you want to support my channel, you can do so by making a one-time donation at vimo.stck.me. You can also support me on patreon.com/vimo using a monthly pledge or an annual pledge, or you can click the join button under this channel, under this video right now, and become a member of this channel. In return, you will get emojis that you can use in the chat and the comments, and certain other privileges like access to a members only section on my Discord server. Until next time, uh, until next time, let me say bye to you right now. The next time I'll see you will be on Saturday at 10 p.m. So see you then. And wait. कहाँ गया? हाँ, yeah. See you then. Until then, bye bye. And thank you for joining today.